Hey guys, it's Sammy. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you are new. Today I'm just going to be going over the books that I read in the summer months. So this past summer, let me do a quick count. We have 18 books to talk about, which is pretty good. This summer I started a job. My reading was going okay, I say in the beginning. Work picked up, it suddenly wasn't very easy to get a lot of reading done. I can't really listen to audiobooks while I work unless I'm doing something really like do not have to think at all. But even that, like, it's just so much easier for me to like listen to music and do it, which sucks. Like, it sucks how I haven't been able to read a lot. I haven't been able to do much of anything, to be honest with you, because on the weekends, like, that's like my time to actually like do things, whether that's errands, whether that's hang out with my friends or family, or just like have quality time, because I don't get to have much of that during the week. So I haven't been doing a lot of reading, but I think 18 books, 17 books, I already forget what I said now, is still pretty good for me. And I read a decent bit of good books. It's been, like I said, a kind of a weird reading time. But without further ado, let's just get into it, because I know this probably will take a decent bit of time. So starting off, I kind of wanted to get these out of the way. Yes, my cat is still on me, so I'm so sorry. I have been buddy reading the entire Mortal Instruments world, Shadowhunters world, since March, but I was behind, so I didn't start reading, I guess, until June. We've been doing live shows. I have a live show on my channel for Clockwork Angel, I think. But anyway, I've been rereading these, and so far we've read City of Bones, City of Ashes, City of Glass, City of Fallen Angels, and that's Clockwork Angel. These are all rereads for me. We haven't gotten to any books that I haven't read before yet, but yeah, I've given these all 4 or 5 stars just because I'm a hoe for the series. But yeah, nothing really to say on this. I've talked about all these before. We've literally done a live show for every single one of these. If you go to my live show, which I'll link up above, I have the description of all the girls that we're doing this with, and if you go to their channels, you can see the other ones as well. So here you go. It's yeah, that's something I've done. Okay, with that said, now we can move into books that you haven't heard me talk about, or you haven't heard me talk about a lot. So starting off in June, I read I Believe in a Thing Called Love by Marie and Gu. Actually, I think I started this in May and I finished it in June. I give this 3.5 stars. This is a YA contemporary romance that centers around this girl that is trying to make this guy fall in love with her by following the steps of a K-drama. It was cute. It just, I don't know, it didn't like really stick with me particularly well. Sorry, I just adjusted the camera. I couldn't tell you the characters' names. I still think it was good and I still recommend it, especially as a YA contemporary romance. But overall, it was kind of forgettable, but still enjoyable. So I still do recommend, especially since it has Korean American rep. Yeah. Next up, I read the last 2 books, well, that are currently out in the Wayward Children series. So In an Absent Dream, which I gave 5 stars. This was absolutely hands down my favorite book so far in the series. Here, let me move over. It follows one of the characters from the first book and their story and their world, and I just thought it was so interesting, and it was by far the world that I felt most like interested in, or not really connected to, because it was not really my style. But I just thought the story was so well told and I absolutely adored it. I give that 5 stars. And then I read Come Tumbling Down, which is the 5th book in the Wayward Children series. And this is unfortunately my least favorite book in the series thus far. I gave it 3.5 stars. Still good, still enjoyable. I'd still recommend it if you want to read the entire series. Like, it's what? Like, these are all like 200-ish page books. Yeah, 200 pages. So I think it's still worth it, especially to like keep back up with characters that are kind of reoccurring in the series. But it was definitely my least favorite. I found the plot just like not what I was looking for, expecting. This kind of followed a world that we'd already explored, and I was kind of hoping for a new world instead of revisiting old ones, because I know we could still have like the characters that I love and adore, but just go to a new world. I'm still interested in the series. I'm gonna keep reading just because I think the writing's really good, and I'm always like interested in seeing like what Sean and McGuire is gonna come up with next. So I'm gonna keep going with that series. Next up, I read another one of my favorite books that I read this year, and that is The Honeymooners by Christina Lauren. This is a adult romance centering around this woman who is the maid of honor at her sister's wedding, and everyone at the wedding gets sick and she doesn't, and the best man doesn't either. So for whatever reason, her and the best man, who hate each other due to prior things that happened in their relationship, they're gonna go on the honeymoon together just because it's like some bougie trip to Hawaii, but they have to pretend like they're married because it was like a giveaway that she won and it had to be in the names of the people that won it. So they have to pretend like married. It's a good time. There is like a lot of like plot in this, which is kind of weird to say, but I found it really enjoyable. There's like a lot of like underlying like things that are weaved in. I don't mean like morals or like anything you need to learn from this book, but like it's not just about the romance. It is, I mean, just about the romance, but there's a lot more stuff happened in this that I kind of even forgot about until I picked it up and I was like, oh my god, I forgot that happened. But it's really good. I wouldn't say it's like full steam like ahead, like super raunchy or anything, but it is really good. I really liked it. It's definitely going to be hard for me to choose if I liked this or The Bride Test more for like my adult romance category, I guess, or like fighting for like one of my favorite books I've read this year. But this was really great and I highly recommend it, especially if you're into adult romance. Oh, and I gave this 5 stars, obviously. I think I didn't say that, but I think you kind of got the vibes. And then I read How We Fight for Our Lives by Sae Jones. So really great, actually. My company that I'm working for, they have a book club and I joined it, and this was the book for July, maybe it was August, I don't quite remember, but this is an autobiography about Sae Jones and him growing up as a Black gay man, and it really just explored his life and a lot of the traumas he's had and how that's kind of shaped him as a person. I highly recommend it. I didn't give it a rating just because, I don't know, rating autobiographies seems kind of wrong to me, but it was really good. I highly recommend it. I think if you like autobiographies, and I highly recommend the audiobook because it is narrated by him and it's told in sort of like this verse poetry style because he is a poet, I guess, or he writes in verse. He does like poems and stuff. I know he's had a collection that was published a couple years back that was pretty popular, but I highly recommend it. I thought it was really good. Almost forgot I read this too. Read this on audiobook just because how could I not? I read The Betrothed by Kira Cass. This is the first book in the Betrothed series. I gave it 1 star. I really thought it was bad, and well, I'm gonna start off by saying that while it was bad, it also had the G slur in it multiple times, which I found very confusing because I feel like it's pretty well known that we don't say that word anymore. I don't know, there's a lot to unpack with that, but it was in there a lot. Be wary of that if you do decide to read it. But this book was just so dumb. So dumb. I just didn't understand what was going on. So like this plot is basically about this court kingdom in, couldn't tell you where, couldn't tell you what time period this is taking place in. I guess hypothetically the past. They don't have technology or anything, I don't think. Yeah, they don't have technology or anything. I guess it's supposed to be sort of like a historical, but you could probably just picture it in the same world as The Selection, just because it's kind of the same sort of vibes. But basically this girl is living in this town and she's kind of like courted because she's part of a bigger family to become the future queen. So like this guy, I guess, like I don't know anything about like royal culture, but I guess you like court a bunch of girls and then he picks a girl to be his wife and then that will eventually be the queen. And she's kind of like the top runner. I'm pretty sure this is all in like the description. So like they have this like kind of courtship and there's 0.0 chemistry there. Very weird. It's just like the whole plot itself doesn't make any sense to me. And then there's also this guy from this neighboring city country that's kind of come into their court for refuge because their country is really hostile towards them, and she starts to have this like draw to this guy from this other country. I just didn't get any sort of vibes from any of the characters in this, like absolutely 0.0 anything. Like I didn't get a good sense for any of the characters, who they were. There was the main girl, there's the king, there was this guy from this other country, there was the girl's best friend, and I just like, I don't know, like I didn't gather anything from this book. And then there was so much that happened in this, because there's like this beginning where it's like, oh, this courtship, and then this guy shows up, and then there's like more here, and then there's another big event here, and then there's more, and then there's a big event at the end, and then it ends in like this sort of cliffhanger thing. But I am just so confused at where this book is even going, because the first like 75% of this could have been a whole entire series. Hypothetically, okay, well, I mean, it could have been, it literally, like The Selection was kind of, I mean, not the same at all, but like, you know, The Selection could have been one book. Like the first part of this book, if it was like slowed down and made any sense whatsoever, could have been 3 books, kind of like The Selection. But oh my god, it was just like I didn't understand what the point was of anything. And don't get me started on how stupid this girl was, because American Singer is literally the smartest person in the world if you compare her to whatever the hell this girl's name is. It was something weird. Hollis. Oh, Hollis, right. Yeah. I don't know. I wouldn't recommend it. If you want something interesting, this was pretty short. I listened to it on audiobook. It's 307 pages. It definitely did not take me a long time. But holy shit. I can't even tell you how, like, it's truly an adventure. And I feel so bad for Kira Cass too, like, in general, like her, like, yeah, she threw in the G slur in this. I just don't, she just, no think. I just, like, don't get that. But this book has a 2.95 star rating on Goodreads. Like, that's so low, like so low, and that just kind of makes me feel bad. Like, she probably was really excited to like step back into writing because she'd only written the selection and she came back, what, like 8 years later to write this, and like, oh, my fans. And it has a 2.95, which I think is one of the lowest star ratings I've ever seen, period. So I just feel bad. Yeah, moving on, I read the ending of this. So this is Life and Death, Twilight Reimagined. It's basically Twilight written with like gender swapped. I forget what it's called, gender bent. So Bella's a boy and Edward's a girl. So like the vampire is a girl and the human's a boy, and then everybody else is swapped and they have weird names. I only read the ending because I know it was like a twist ending, or is like a different ending. I actually like the ending. I feel like Twilight would have been really interesting as just a standalone, but obviously I love the whole series. But I just read the ending because I was going to pick up Midnight Sun right away, and then I just realized I can't read that long of a book right now without an audiobook to read along with it. So I have it on hold at the library and hopefully it will come in semi soon. But I read the ending of this. I didn't give it a rating because I technically didn't read the whole book. I did mark it as read because I can. And yeah, I thought it was a more realistic ending and I actually quite liked it. Otherworld. Jason Segel, Kirsten Miller. I read this. This is the first book in the Otherworld series, which I didn't realize this was a series. Perhaps I should have. I don't know why. I always am like, oh, a standalone. And I'm like, and then it's like never a standalone. I think this is actually a trilogy. It has a decent bit of books out right now. So I did kind of enjoy this. I gave it 3 stars because I did find some enjoyment in certain aspects of it, but I don't think it was anything special. So I don't know if I'd recommend it per se, just because it wasn't anything special, but it was still good. But I did find, and I'm gonna read this straight from my Goodreads review because I remember I spent a decent bit of time on like trying to word this correctly. A lot of the verbiage in here is extremely ableist. There's a constant mention of people who may not be paralyzed as broken or not a life worth living. This is not really challenged until the very end, I will say, very end. It does try to make some commentary on that, but it's not done super well in my opinion. Yeah, like that was kind of disturbing because basically, I didn't really say the plot of this book. This is kind of a story where these people want to, like, I don't even know, man. It's kind of like Westworld and Ready Player One combined. So it's this video game that is like that you can become immersed into, kind of like Ready Player One. But then there's also this other aspect of like I kind of mentioned, disability, paraplegic sort of situation we got going on, or people that are in like comas. And then there's also the added reality of like, are the things that are created in the game real? Right? Like, I don't know if any of you have seen Westworld, but Westworld is basically this robot amusement park that's themed like a Western, and the whole plot is like, these robots are so real that aren't they basically human? Because if they have like the thought processes to like interact with humans, like they sort of become like real. And it also goes into that. So there's like a lot going on in here, and I did find parts of it enjoying because it's like kind of like a adventure sort of novel, but overall I don't think it was anything special. And I'm kind of mad I didn't know this was a series because I don't have really any interest in reading more books. I'm probably going to keep this one because it's signed, and maybe in the future I'll just listen to the future ones on audiobook, but I don't know. Also, this is for these 12 books self-destruct in 12 months, so that's a link up above if you're interested in watching that. I think I read another one. Yeah, I did. I think I read another book from that video this summer too, so that was good. Next up, I read Swear on This Life by Renee Carlino. I gave this 5 stars. It's an adult romance. Did I not write a review for this? Oh, I just did the little sad eye emojis. I gave this 5 stars. This is a adult romance that centers around this girl that kind of had like a hard upbringing, and she's in this relationship with this ex-footballer, and it's just like kind of like in the beginning going through her life, and then her friend introduces her to this book, and she realizes this book is written about her life when her and this boy were growing up. So she's assuming it's written by this boy, and it's kind of the story of both present day and then also us reading the book that was published in the story. So like kind of meta, but you know what I'm saying, right? Like, yeah, so like the first chapter starts off with the woman in present day, and she's just living her life. She's like a writer in California, and it's just her life, and then it like alternates, like I think every other chapter, into the book that was published from her ex-best friend that she grew up with to her narrative in present day, and then it goes back and forth as she like reads the book sometimes. In the beginning, I think it's just like a prologue into like what happened in her past as well, to give context into her character as well as the main like love interest character. I thought it was done really well. I don't know if I'd recommend it. It's definitely like different. I don't know, it's not the traditional romance that I read. Like this was a little, I wouldn't say dark, because not particularly dark. Oh, that's not true. It's kind of dark, but like not in like a way that's like the whole book feels dark. But there's a lot of shit that happens in this that's dark, but I kind of just liked the story of the characters. Like I just genuinely thought that the characters were developed in a way that I really enjoyed, and I really liked their character development and seeing them grow up and kind of seeing who they were today and kind of like understanding their past. And I really enjoyed the book in book format, which I wasn't sure I was gonna like. I actually didn't even know that was an aspect in this until I started reading. So overall, I really love this. I'm hesitant to recommend it because it is like, I don't think it would be for everyone, but I really liked it. It's also like a southern sort of, like it gives me like southern vibes. I can't remember what state the past actually takes place in, but I really liked it. I still really want to recommend this because I want to see what other people think of it, because it is like lesser reviewed on Goodreads and relatively unknown, I'd say. But I really loved it, and it's definitely one of my favorites I've read this year. Next up, dark romance, I don't know, Punk 57 by Penelope Douglas. I actually have a whole vlog that will go up eventually of me reading this book along with some other books. But I did give it 5 stars. It's another one of my favorite books I've read this year. I don't want to say it's the best book I've read this year because it's interesting and I have a lot to talk about it, because it is like, it's in this like weird situation with me, but I did really enjoy it. I highly recommend it, and I'm going to talk more about it in that vlog, because I could go on and on about this book, but I'm not going to do that because it would be a long video and there's a lot I want to talk about. Next up, I read for my book club again with work, Freshwater by Awake Izumi. I gave this 4 stars, and I grapple with giving it a higher rating. I'm going to do a really bad job of explaining it, so I'm just going to read kind of like the beginning. Freshwater explores the surreal experience of having a fractured self. It centers around a young Nigerian woman, Ada, who develops separate cells within her as a result of being born with one foot on the other side. But it follows Ada and then the spirits within her and the kind of periods of her life and the different spirits that kind of control those periods of her life. So it starts as when she's a child, it goes into young adulthood, teenage years, college, and then after college and sort of like the adulthood. This is very dark. So like I said, Swear on This Life is like dark. This is like graphically dark. There's a lot of trigger warnings, which I will list through here. Suicide, self-harm, body dysmorphia, eating disorders, rape, abuse, gore, okay, like mutilation, and that's just like really hard for me to read personally, so really take note of that. Homophobia, transphobia, and death, all of those noted in there. It's a really hauntingly beautiful story, like not something I would typically read. The reason I didn't give it 5 stars is just because like I just can't vibe well with those stories, and it's not anything to the story. It is an amazing story, but I just like, I read those like very like dark things and I just like am instantly kind of put off with it, since I think I'm just so removed from that kind of stuff, which is privileged, kind of just a contemporary with like this sort of spiritual view on top of it. It's very interesting. I still recommend it if you think you can deal with all those trigger warnings that I just went through. Short, it's 229 pages. I listened to the audiobook, which I believe is narrated by the narrator, and that was really good. So with all that said, I do recommend it. I obviously gave it a high rating, but just knowing all that stuff, go into it with that mindset. And then perhaps one of the biggest surprises this year, and I actually do have the physical book, but I'm not taking it out because it's like stacked under books right now. I'm just not doing that, was Landline by Rainbow Rowell. This was another book that I read for the 12 books that will self-destruct in 12 months, and surprisingly I really loved it. I gave it 4.5 stars, but like I grapple with giving it 5 because I think it's truly like one of the books that have stuck with me so much this past year. And wow, it just got hella dark in here. Sorry about that, but I just really adore the story. It's just this story of this married couple. They have 2 kids. It's Christmas time and the woman is been working really hard at this comedy like show, and she's supposed to go to her husband's family's for Christmas, but she gets this like really big deal at work and they need to like write out a couple episodes during Christmas, so she decides to skip the family trip. And her husband have been having some rocky times as of late. So she skips the trip. It's like a whole thing. But when she goes to her parents' house, there's a phone in her upstairs bedroom, that obviously where she lived when she met her husband in college. And when she goes to call him off of that phone, because they haven't been able to get in touch like any other way, like they've just always been missing each other because of the time difference and just like a whole myriad of things, she actually calls, and when she answers the phone she realizes she's talking to her husband from the past. And all that sounds like super like, I don't know, cheesy or just like stupid, but I don't know what it was about this book. Like maybe I was just in a sentimental mood or what, but I just like really loved it. And even though I hated like the main character, like the woman, by the end of it I really felt for her, and I just like really like adored everything about it. Like it's also like told, like she reflects a lot on the past, so you kind of see their relationship like when they were younger, and I just thought it was like really cute. I was just like, what the hell, like I really like this. Do I want to support Rainbow Rowell and give her like a top spot on my favorite books of the year? Like I don't know, but damn, like I really liked this book. Definitely, once again, not gonna be for everyone. Pretty firm in like saying that, but I really loved it. So yeah, I don't know what to say about that, but I really loved Landline, and I think I'm gonna give it 5 stars because I just really loved it. Like, why did I like it so much? Moving on to the last book that I read in the summer months, You Should See Me in a Crown by Leah Johnson. This was such a surprise for me, so I gave this 5 stars. It's like a 4.5 5-star. So I actually got the privilege of kind of going to a, I guess, kind of book club for this book with Reese's Book Club, and it was kind of like a live show-esque thing where people, there was a moderator and they asked Leah Johnson about the book. The editor of the book was also there, and they kind of just talked about writing this book and kind of like where it came from and kind of the ideas behind it. I'd say it was like a 4 or a 4.5, and then once I got like so much more context in the book, I couldn't not give it a 5-star because I felt like it connected so much more with me. But basically this is the story of Liz Lighty, and she just has this dream of being in the band of this college that she's always dreamed of going to, but in order to be able to go to this college she needs a scholarship. In order to get scholarship money, she decides to run for prom court, because if you win prom king or queen you get a scholarship. While doing this, she's also simultaneously falling in love with somebody else that's running for prom queen. And there's a lot more antics that go on in this. It's definitely like a high school rooted story with a lot of drama and kind of like underlying things that are going on as well. But I just thought it was really fun because it's like very deeply rooted in like joy, even though there is a lot of stuff that's darker that happens in this book. And a lot of bad things happen to Liz, and there's a lot of tension and drama. It is like very deeply rooted in like happiness, and that's always pleasant to see because admittedly, I've read a lot of YA stories about Black main characters, and a lot of them have been like dark, deeply rooted in like tragedy. So it's nice to have a book that's deeply rooted in joy, despite still discussing the hardships that many Black kids deal with, especially in predominantly white schools. So with all that said, 5 stars, highly recommend. 4, 4.5, 5 stars. I just really loved it, and once you hear the author like talk so much about her book, like how can you not just like want to like give it everything? So I really love this. I highly recommend it. It's definitely like really engaging and fun. I read this in like one day, so that was definitely a longer video, but thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Comment down below if you've read any of these books, your thoughts on these books, and I'd love to talk to you guys more about them. And keep an eye out for future videos, and thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have a great day. I will talk to you very soon. Bye!